If one day your health isn't what it used to be, who would quietly sit by your side, say nothing, and simply hold your hand, choosing to stay? Not everyone will, and that truth often only reveals itself when it's already too late. Sometimes it's the one you never expected. Other times, it's the person who once promised to never leave, but disappeared without a word. In this video, we'll gently walk through 4 kinds of friendships that can shape the way we journey through old age. If you're watching this now, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. I've already found one of those 4 people, because perhaps today's story is also yours. 1. The one who listens without judging. The keeper of silence for the soul's voice. Have you ever felt that conversations are getting shorter? Not because we have nothing to say, but because the listener no longer has the patience to truly hear. Sometimes all it takes is a distracted glance or a quick, "I know already," and whatever we were about to share quietly fades into silence. At a certain age, we stop needing to be right. We just hope someone will sit beside us long enough to truly listen. Many older friends have quietly confided, what hurts the most isn't loneliness. It's being half heard, a story cut off before it's told, a memory brushed aside by advice, and slowly they retreat into silence. Not because they've run out of things to say, but because no one seems to want to hear them anymore. To listen. It sounds so simple, yet it's becoming rare in a world that never slows down. Eleanor, 79, lives on a quiet street in the suburbs. After her husband passed away and her children moved far away, her daily conversations were reduced to polite greetings with neighbors or quick thank yous at the corner store. One windy afternoon, she received a handwritten letter, a rarity in this age of instant messages. It was from Marion, an old high school classmate who, as it turns out, now lived not far from her. They made plans to meet at a vintage tea shop, where the window frames still carried the scent of old wood, and the wall clock marked each passing minute with a gentle tick. Eleanor thought it would be a polite reunion, a few questions, some kind replies, and then goodbye. But what she didn't expect was that Marion didn't say much at all. She didn't look at her phone. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer advice. She just sat there, pouring tea slowly and listening, with a quiet focus that calmed the heart. Between the soft clinks of spoon against teacup, Eleanor spoke of her early days of motherhood, the unnamed ache after losing her husband, and the dreams she never dared speak aloud. And in that moment, she realized something. It had been a very long time since she last heard her own heart, without being talked over. That night, Eleanor didn't cry from sadness. She cried because someone made her feel she still mattered, that her words still had weight, that her presence was still seen. For someone older, that feeling is like a warm light switching on in a room that sat in darkness far too long. When someone listens with their whole heart, you don't just feel heard, you feel valued. Not because what you say is groundbreaking, but because your existence is still welcomed. In a world where the elderly are often told, "You've talked enough," that story's old. A true listener can heal deeper wounds than any prescription ever could. Do you remember the last time someone truly listened to you? No rushing, no interruptions, no waiting to talk, just presence. And have you ever been that someone for a person who needed nothing more than your quiet company? Because sometimes what we need most isn't an answer. It's a silent gaze, a gentle nod, to know, I am still seen, I still matter. 2. The one who checks in. The keeper of life's gentle rhythm. Some days time doesn't pass by the ticking of a clock, but by the weight of silence. Have you ever sat by the window watching the sunlight stretch across the yard and quietly thought to yourself, today feels just like yesterday? After the children are grown, after work fades into the background, life begins to slow, often more suddenly than expected. And in that stillness, the most precious thing isn't a grand gesture or an expensive gift. It's the sound of a phone ringing, right on time. Maybe you've also waited for someone to call, not to ask, is everything okay? but simply to say, I was thinking of you. But day by day, when no one reaches out, the distance grows. No one's at fault. There's just no one left to start. Older folks often hesitate to make the first move. They don't want to intrude. They rarely call or text first, not because they don't care, but because they're afraid they might interrupt someone else's busy life. And that's why the first person who picks up the phone is always the one we hold dearest. George, 74, lives alone in a small wooden house near the lake. After losing his wife, he came here to slow down, spending quiet mornings watering the plants, reading the paper, and making tea at the exact same time each day. It was a peaceful life, but there was a space he couldn't fill on his own. The steady connection with someone who felt familiar. One late afternoon, while spring rain lightly tapped on the roof, the phone rang. It was Frank, an old friend from their days working in the electric company. They used to eat lunch together out of lunch boxes, but drifted apart after retirement. Frank didn't say much, just asked, "Remember when we got stuck in that substation during the storm?" And just like that, they both laughed out loud. Since then, every Sunday at around 4 p.m., the phone rings again. They talk about the smallest things. A tree blooming earlier than usual, the weather forecast predicting rain, how the grilled fish turned out a little too crispy. Nothing special, but maybe that's exactly what makes it so special. George says, "I don't expect much these days, but every week, just hearing Frank's voice reminds me I haven't disappeared. It's just one phone call, but it creates a moment to look forward to prepare for, like a meeting that doesn't need an invitation. Frank doesn't need a reason to call, and George doesn't need to pretend he's busy or fine. Between them, there's only simplicity and sincerity. For older adults, the feeling of being remembered is not a small thing. It's the thread that stitches silence back into meaning. It's the anchor that reminds them they still have a place in someone else's world. Do you have someone whose name, when spoken, warms your heart instantly? Not to share anything urgent, but just to say, "I'm here, and I've been thinking of you." And if you don't have someone like that yet, maybe today is your chance to become that person. A message, a call, a gentle check-in. No reason needed, no occasion necessary, just a quiet presence, regular and small, yet enough to let someone feel they're still being looked for by someone, somewhere. 3. The one who grows with you, the nurturer of a thoughtful mind. At a certain age, we stop seeking noisy gatherings. What we long for instead is a real conversation with someone who understands what we're thinking, even before we find the words. Have you ever sat among a crowd, laughing and talking, yet still felt a quiet emptiness inside? Not because you were alone, but because you were missing that one person who truly resonated with you. Some connections don't come from shared memories, but from what we're still reaching for right now. Many older friends have said they have walking buddies, they join card games, even lively group chats from time to time, but it's rare to find someone they truly want to talk deeper with. Not everyone enjoys reading. Not everyone wants to talk about trust, forgiveness, or the things we can't hold in our hands. So they keep their thoughts to themselves. Though sometimes all it would take is one person willing to listen and wonder along with them. Diane is 82, a retired teacher. She lives in a modest home with a small garden blooming in the back. Every day she sits at a wooden desk by the window, handwriting a few lines into her journal, a ritual she's kept since her teaching days. One afternoon, while visiting the local library to borrow a well-worn book on life philosophy, she wandered into a discussion group that happened to be open to all. No one asked her age. No one looked surprised at her silver hair or the gentle lines around her eyes. There was only a warm welcome and an empty seat waiting beside a woman named Clara. Clara was nearly 10 years younger, but they quickly discovered a shared rhythm. They read the books others said had too many words. They asked each other questions, not to win an argument, but to understand more deeply. What began with library meetings soon turned into coffee dates, then art classes together, and slowly, they started sharing the things that had quietly weighed on their hearts for years. No one was the teacher. They learned together, and in their own way, they grew with the patience, depth, and quiet joy that only aging can bring. Diane once believed that life at 80 was meant to slow down, but to her surprise, it was when her spirit felt most alive. Clara isn't like any of my old friends, Diane said, but maybe that's why she makes me curious again. She reminds me there's still so much I want to understand. Some relationships don't come from familiarity, but from the spark of feeling we're still allowed to grow. It's not just the young who need to learn. Older hearts crave discovery too. We all do, because the human spirit doesn't age with our hair. It only begins to grow old when there's nothing left to look forward to tomorrow. Do you remember the last time someone made you see something familiar in a new way? Someone who made you want to revisit an old book or reflect on a memory with fresh eyes? Someone who didn't just listen, but grew with you, whether you're 60, 70, or 80. If you have someone like that, hold them close. And if not, perhaps today is the perfect moment to start looking or to open your heart to someone new. Because who knows, a simple cup of tea, a thoughtful conversation, or a shared book might just become the bridge between two souls ready to grow together. The one who stays through your sorrow, the companion in quiet presence. There are moments in life when no matter how many people are around, we still feel alone. Not because anyone did something wrong, but because some losses are simply too heavy for anyone else to carry with us. Have you ever had an afternoon like that? The house still quiet, the soft clink of a spoon against a teacup still echoes. But the one who used to sit beside you is no longer there. In our hardest days, people often don't know what to do. Some send flowers, some write condolences, some call, and then call less and less. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know what to say, and slowly, quietly, they drift away. The world outside keeps spinning, but for someone in mourning, time gets stuck at a place no one else can see. And in those moments, the most precious thing isn't words of comfort or reasons to stay strong. It's the quiet presence, steady, unshaken, of someone who doesn't walk away. Mr. Henry, now 85, shared life with his wife for over half a century. They used to take morning walks together, split a cup of coffee in the backyard, and read the same book, one half each. When she passed away suddenly from a stroke, he didn't cry out. He simply sat for a long time in the chair by the window, the one where she used to knit every afternoon. The funeral was simple. Friends came. Flowers filled the small room. But within days, the phone stopped ringing. Messages became fewer, shorter. Henry was used to silence, but not this kind of emptiness. Only Thomas, his friend from the church choir, still came. He didn't bring flowers. He didn't say, "Be strong." He just placed a hot cup of coffee on the table, pulled up a chair, and looked out at the garden. They didn't talk much. Sometimes just, "Feels chilly this morning." Other times, long stretches of shared silence. But Henry knew he was not alone. There are some griefs, Henry once said, that can't be shortened. Only walk through with someone beside you. Thomas didn't offer explanations. He didn't try to fix the pain. He just sat, like a quiet watchman through the night. And somehow that silent presence became the firmest kind of comfort. No need for words, just the staying. No need to understand everything, just to not leave. For those who've lived most of their lives, they don't expect anyone to heal the pain. They just hope for someone who's willing to be there. In silence, with them. Maybe you're thinking now of someone who once sat beside you in your deepest sorrow. Someone who didn't say much, but stayed long enough to keep your heart from feeling lost. And if today you're walking through a season of sadness, please remember, no one is truly strong alone. Let someone sit beside you, even if no words are spoken. Sometimes that's all it takes to know you're still held in the softest kind of love. And if someone you care about is walking through loss, maybe today is the time to stop by. No need for speeches, no need for flowers or baked goods. Just be there. Sit beside them, quietly, because sometimes a heart just needs presence. A gentle hand on the shoulder, a shared breath in the same stillness. Finale, the four who remain when life falls silent. Growing older isn't measured by the number of years we've lived, but by the number of people who stay when life grows quiet. The one who sits beside you, saying nothing, just listening. The one who remembers you each week for no particular reason. The one who makes you want to keep learning, even with silver in your hair. And the one who doesn't walk away, even when all you have left to offer is sorrow. If you're thinking of those people now, hold them close. And if you haven't found them yet, don't let sadness take root, because sometimes all it takes is a small gesture, a message, a phone call, a quiet invitation to tea, to begin a friendship worth treasuring. Perhaps the most meaningful part of this chapter in life isn't being loved by many, but being held gently in the hearts of a few who truly care. And sometimes, becoming that fifth person is the most beautiful way to begin. A life message to you, our cherished companions in time. Growing older is not the final chapter, but the most profound one in a life well lived. You don't need a crowd around you, just a few souls quiet enough, true enough, and still choosing to stay. And don't forget, you, with your calm presence, your lived wisdom, and your heart that knows how to listen, may already be the person someone out there is silently grateful for, even if they've never found the words to say it.